I loved the movie so much that I came home and wrote a blog. And then I sent it to, hold on, I sent it to IMDb because they have this section right here that says add full plot. It's completely blank. So I wrote the plot. Let me tell you about Jack the Giant Slayer. As told by Amber Garibay, I highly recommend this movie. It's a definite rave. Go see it in IMAX. You have to do the IMAX. It's 11:21 p.m. I'm so tired, but I'm going to try to read this to you. The boy was poor. I could tell at once. The room was barely a spare, whereas hers was striking. Each child was tucked neatly in bed, as the story danced by firelight along walls and separate houses. His father was tall, filling the room with structure. His smile was the beam of his baritone. The giants made a feast of man, said he, far too kind to be ominous. Their flesh was a favorite, until the people became too few to eat. The girl had eyes like starlight. They were twinkling as her mother read the passage in a faraway castle, in a bed for a princess so grand. There was a great battle, with one last hope for victory. Her voice was a melody, her face lyrically lined. King Eric cut the heart out of a giant slain, molding it with magic and steel. It became the crown on his head, and yes, the magic worked. It was the heart in the steel, the recognition, that made the giants kneel to man. I didn't think about the possibility of power, about the advantage of controlling an army of monsters, as I watched from my seat in IMAX. But I remember feeling the mass of them, the volume of giant. I was the small of the king, sitting there in the theater, even through the crown, which had at last brought the beast to bay. It was the pauper who finished the book, father reading to son. King Eric climbed down the beanstalk, leaving the giants to roam the ancient land of Gantu, the place between earth and sky. He ordered the stalk cut immediately, and it ripped through the earth like a scar. Time healed the land, leaving just enough unsealed to lie to rest a king, worn by years to sleep eternal. He was buried with both the power and the seed. When are you mortals going to realize that you weren't meant to live forever? I was sad to see the end, the story ends, the scene of loving parents, telling the same tale simultaneously. All at once the children were grown, and both parents were absent, killed. The plague took out his father, leaving him an impoverished orphan, indentured to his uncle, who could not afford to keep him. I cannot tell you how her mother died, but I will say it pained her father to see her reflected. He didn't like to lose sight of her, in worry. Stubborn, she went anyway, as most princesses do. She was watching a production, a lively stage of colorful banter, until a crowd of men took notice of her smile. That is what first captured Jack. It was the giant of her smile. He watched near panic as a horde of rowdy men began ripping at her gown, far too fresh to be comely. Her skin was the white tail of a deer. The gasp stuck just to throat when Jack burst over to his damsel. He was distressed by the size of these manly giants, never fathoming that he would soon meet the legend of his book. You can't plant seed and power in the same plot because they impregnate greed. Jack had no foresight other than to eat fist, which he did before he fell. He stood rightly enough next to his princess, though he was not right in composure because he did not yet realize who she was. Jack played most adoringly by Nicholas Hoult, was just that, absolutely adorable by the way he looked at her. She was royalty before she was crowned by the way he admired her smile. She was revealed as Princess Isabel, removing her cloak upon horse. I was envious for my seat, wanting nothing more than to steal her beauty and her youth. Eleanor Tomlinson was cast like a gem upon the screen, her eyes sapphire, brought nearly to aquamarine. Her hair was a carrot by lavish, rich to nearly burnt auburn like a sky, set to the dim of sunset. Jack was taken, as was I. How could it not be possible to love her at a glance? I wondered about my own face, knowing that there have been many to turn recently. No one has cared to see my smile on any account that is regular. Perhaps age is the spoil. But then to watch them was to relive it. I remember being loved that way. The way Jack looked at Isabel that first day. Ewan McGregor? Ooh, he made me forget. Hot damn, that man is sexy. I wanted to be the blade he stuck playfully out at Jack, who had forgotten to bow for his lady, just because I knew he would take it back in. I was biting my lip at the flirtation of his character, deciding on the spot that knightly men in silver would be my new fetish, and yes, I would mount him. No disrespect to his wife, married over 13 years, I ran out of fingers while I was counting them, and 3 children. Celebrities get to be my fantasy because they aren't real people. That is my disclaimer about being a sexist. That is how it was back then. And the poor princess would be denied Jack's love. Yes, they fall in love, because she was promised to another by her father's choice. Women did not choose who they mounted back then. Perhaps I am more fortunate than she, after all. I suddenly regretted feeling jealous of his love. She pled her case to the king, imploring him. The man she was pledged to marry was twice her age, and he cared nothing for her, nor she for him. I normally like Stanley Tuccy, who played the fiancé Roderick and future ruler of the land. I despised him quite readily as the villain he was in the flick, forgetting that I had seen him elsewhere, though my mind kept trying to place him in other films. That is the danger of being memorable, which he is and was.